How's all that coordinating going?
Uh, so in every,
Short answers only. Jeez.
there
Just kidding. There is no short answer.
ain't no short answer to this one. So every submission leading up to the permit submission that was just 3 weeks ago, one series of cross bracing was on the column line of this existing building. So interestingly enough, the beam line is actually further north than the column line. So the beam line is actually bracketed off the column. And so it's kind of like eccentrically loaded onto the column, and it's not bolted directly to it. And it's just, applying your standard forces to it. So, but it's the bracing has always been on the column line. And then we noticed that it has shifted and it's on the beam line. So now it's kind of
It's not
encroaching into
attached to
other.
any columns or what?
So it's not attached to any columns, but they've got a detail that's basically showing some additional bracketing and some other things there, reinforcing the column. So the column is going to be stiffened.
These are existing?
They're all existing columns and
Okay.
all existing beams in this particular part of the building.
Yeah. But new cross
And
bracing.
but new cross bracing, new stiffeners, new cross bracing. And the thing about it is that this cross bracing also occurs basically in a mechanical chase that has both existing and new steam lines in it. And it's the cross bracing now is shifted where it is cutting through
Yeah, of course.
the existing lines,
That works.
not the yeah. You're like, really, man?
Mm. Did they not
And
load
so
all the models in, or was that stuff not modeled, or what? Or they just
no,
didn't
no,
care?
they're all modeled. I mean, because we were looking at our model today, saying, hey, we got a little
Oh man.
something wrong here.
Are they not coordinating those other models, or are they just putting stuff in like, oh, we'll figure that out later? Or is it they just don't care?
Now, well, my structural engineer definitely cares. Love them. They're fantastic.
Uh-huh.
It might have just been something that was missed only because these particular lines don't necessarily show up on the new work. It shows up on the existing to remain. And I don't know if I don't know.
Base
We've been,
filters or whatever.
we literally just had this conversation today about these little gremlins showing up
Yeah.
and, like whether it's, the view graphics or face filter or,
Yeah. It could be
work
hiding in
set
so
or
many
something.
places.
It's
Yeah.
exactly, it's just like,
There's like 55 places or something you can put stuff in Revit there for
right.
one reason or another. You won't see it.
And my assumption is they might have looked at 54 and it's in the 55th.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, typical. It's crazy how much time people spend looking for things inside of a model like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a ton of wasted time in that. I did see. I think that we had this in our office. It was there's just a view where it's just like everything turned on, everything.
Right. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
that is the beauty of a system like Revit or any BIM tool. I think is that like you can have views that never end up on sheets, right? like I
Yep.
think we've talked
Yep.
about that before. It's like these are great for QA, internal use only. No one ever has to know that they exist as far as final output goes, but man, they're helpful in the meantime, right? So
Yeah.
having those sheets or a view where everything's turned on, or having a view where all the rated walls are red, having a view where
Yep.
all of the
Yep.
exiting paths are, showing all the time, whatever it is. It's like, it just seems like there's so many opportunities to have kind of built in safety checks like that.
We have those, and those were the things that's what we were referencing back when we found it. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
huh.
Yeah. I mean, and even just
Hey,
having them on isn't going to tell you that there's clashes happening, but at least like
right.
you have an opportunity to see like what the fuss is about. Oh yeah, man. I remember doing a mechanical layout for a mechanical engineer because they couldn't figure out how to route it, and it's like I
We
just you're just spend all day in a 3D view with the section box and figure that stuff out. But I don't think
yeah
they do
we
that.
no well probably not. And
This
we
is
we
years
spent
ago
we
though.
spent we spent a lot of time coordinating the basically all of the roof
Hmm.
layout for this current project because where everything naturally occurs in the mechanical is fine, but then once it like hits the roof, it looks like a Charlie Foxtrot.
Yeah.
and and then you need everything to kind of either be aligned or you move around and stuff like that. And they're like, I don't really know what you're talking about. And so it was easier to model it, show them, and they say, oh yeah, do that.
I like how we'll take care of that for you. We'll show you.
Yeah.
Amazing to me how much time people spend modeling these models to the nth degree when our profession, like we talked about this a few episodes ago,
Oh,
15 sheets to build the building. Right?
I pulled out my soapbox.
It's all about
Talking
representation and abstraction. It's not about putting every freaking screw in there, right? But so many people get trapped into this, like you have to put everything in the model. This is one of the issues I see with this whole topic of digital twin, which is you will have this twin digital model of the actual physical building in which you can run simulations and see how they turn out in the digital world, and then if you like what you see, apply it to the physical world so that you don't waste your time like with a different furniture layout or a different conference room configuration or whatever. You can
Right.
you can potentially do that digitally and then do it, but in order to do that you have to have so much detail in these models. It's a completely different use than modeling for delivery of a project, which is construction documents.
Right. Which I pulled out my soapbox that you and I had discussed in the past about why we're spending so much time basically redrawing a manufacturer's typical detail if we're really not doing anything different to it. Okay, yeah, so we're going to put it in our model. Okay, fine. But if we're showing this detail for representation of a basis of design, why are we wasting our time?
Yeah.
Why aren't we more concerned about, okay, if we have a roof detail, let's have that detail like that where we've got like say maybe a special condition or something like that we need to like get it all squared away. And then and so I just kind of like went off on the rant that you and I've kind of gone off about, just like we're drawing too much and we're not saying anything more than what the manufacturer basically told us what to say. Don't redraw their stuff. Let's focus on the details that we really care about. I don't care about a typical detail. I care about how that typical detail is being modified, changed, altered. I need to see how that works. Let me spend more time on that. If all of my other roof terrains are just your standard off the shelf, Zern, let's just throw it out there.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. then let's just go ahead and use that detail.
Well, what's amazing to me is you've got to think about this stuff long term, right? So
yeah.
There is potential for value in redrawing details if you're hooked up to, let's just say like eSpecs, not a sponsor, right? Where all of your components in the detail are tied directly to your specifications, and then your specifications are being written by you drawing that detail.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that has potential payoff over several projects in the future, right? Because now you have this thing that is tied back to another database that enables your team to like specs written for me. Yes, please. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fantastic. But if you're not doing anything like that and you simply are redrawing it because it's mindless work and you're not actually willing to tackle a harder problem, and so therefore you're just cruising by redrawing these details, that is completely unnecessary. And I think that happens a lot. It's like, especially now where people are in isolation, I could see this happening a lot. I'm not saying it is, but I could see it where it's like, what'd you do today? Well, I drew 5 details. It's like, wow, that's a lot of details. It's like, did you need to draw them, right? Because they've already been drawn. Or were you just doing something that you knew was safe to do? It's not adding overall value to the project. It's not something that requires thought. It's just really rote kind of busy work at that point.
Right.
And no, like, stop doing busy work. Like we all need to get out of the rut of doing busy work. Like this whole, like, there's so much drawing that happens that doesn't need to happen.
Right. Oh, well, totally.
But it's just a place to stick hours, right? Like, so what I don't understand is like how everybody doesn't understand that what architects do is sell time. And if you're spending your time doing stupid stuff, there's no value there, right? And
Right,
so
right.
it doesn't work. It doesn't fit the business model.
I mean, it was funny. It's like, how else are they going to know that this is what we want? Well, you say roof tray and then spec it. And then, they see what is in the spec. And then, there's so many different ways to streamline this to make it so much easier on us. And, you and I go back to this whole, conversation about, well, if you're doing a model-based delivery, okay, then model everything.
Potentially,
I mean, that's,
yeah, but like you would have to figure all that out ahead of time. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. We're still stuck in this kind of like purgatory of the way we used to do it and the
yes,
way we want to do it.
right.
And
Yeah, because really,
nobody's willing to embrace that want to do part.
yeah, and that conversation would really be like, what does the next person in line need from me? Not
Right.
what needs to be there ultimately, because that might not be your job to put the final thing in there. It just might be to represent what it is that you need.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, being a piece of the puzzle and kind of understanding that you're a piece of the puzzle is so important, and really stepping back and asking other people what they need in this process seems to be much more clearly the direction that we need to be going. But you're right, we are stuck in this purgatory of delivering drawings for approval rather than building a BIM model for building off of. Like those are two, again, we just keep beating the same drum. It's just
right.
right. It actually is that's a good way to put it. Like we're stuck in the middle of it right here.
Mm-hmm.
So who's going to figure this out? I think that, man, there's a lot of people out there willing to figure this out, and they're the ones who've left firms to go do that and figure that out, and they're not working within firms.
Right. So
if you're in the firm, you still got to pay the bills. You got to feed the machine.
So I actually am making a pact with myself that I'm going to try to see how I can implement it on the next project and how we can go about basically taking the busy work out of our hands. Yeah. There's so many people out there testing things, like doing all of the research for us. Why should we apply our brain power to stuff that we're like, okay, I need to find a UL 916 partition. I don't know if that's a real number, but I'm throwing one out there. Mm-hmm. And so, like somebody goes through the effort of like, oh, here's a UL, 916 partition. I'll go ahead and draw that. Well, isn't there a detail right there for it? Yes. And it's got all of the parameters and everything else for it. Why not just grab it and move it in and say, okay, boom, here, I'm done.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, it depends. It depends what that long-term use is, right? Because
true.
I'll throw out another example. Another example is we want to use this detail again later, but it doesn't look like our details. It doesn't fit our standards.
True.
We all know that doesn't happen very often, right? Like that'll be our little secret, that everybody on every project's reinventing the details because that's how they do it. But if you had a company-wide cloud-based content repository where you want to save somebody else time later and not just worry about yourself right now, you might take the time to clean that detail up, submit it into the system, and get it put out as a standard detail.
Right now we're the detail suppository.
Yeah. Suppository is a funny word.
Yeah.
Not a repository.
And it seems like it's, applicable here because we all seem to have our head up our anyway.
Yeah. No, but I like what you're saying, because really it takes that kind of leadership to say, step back and say, is there a better way to do this? It's not like, what's the better way to do this? You can't always assume that there is a better way. A lot of times we reinvent stuff that's been done slightly differently for no valuable gain, right? But is there a better way to do this? And that the hard part there is just knowing what's available and being exposed to so you're constantly trying to be exposed to what's available through lunch and learns and the web and your Twitter feed and all these things, and you can't obviously know it all. But it seems to me like at least a decent attempt for everything that we do to say, is there a better way to do this now? Like, we've been doing it like this forever. Is there a better way? Let's just spend 15 minutes and explore figure that out.
Right.
I don't know.
Tough problems. Exactly. And that is so totally exactly what I'm thinking. there are better ways out there. We just need to commit to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Committing to it is hard because, again, people like to do the thing that they already know how to do. And looking for a new way to do it definitely does. There is a hit on your time card to figuring out new ways to do it. But again, like, I think there needs to be a stance from the company, no matter how big or small that is, that you're willing to look for these new ways to do them, and if they exist, spend the time to figure it out so that you can save a ton of time in the future, right? Like, I feel like a lot of times
Right.
we just don't think about our future selves. We don't give the gifts to our future selves of figuring how to automate something now so that we don't have to do that again. It's that, to me, is the level that we should all be operating on.
Well, the only gift that seems to keep on giving is the question of us saying, why are we doing it this way?
Yeah.
Uh,
Have another suppository.
exactly. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Oh, speaking of suppositories, when's your appointment?
Yesterday.
Well, you sound like you're doing just fine.
Didn't get dinner afterwards.
That's what you were referring to.
That's what I was referring
I
to.
didn't know what you were referring to. Okay. Yikes.
I was cracking.
It'd be pretty funny if it was over like a Zoom call. They're like, okay, now you're gonna have to do this.
Well, what's funny is that, I had to take COVID tests before this, and I would go into their office, and they were so hands off, I would have to actually administer the COVID test to myself. And then they would basically be barking the process through. And then essentially I would say, and then kind of go through things and then put the little swab in your nose, swirl it around 3 times, hold it there for 10 seconds, which that's actually the worst part, is the holding it there, because it's literally like jabbing into the back of your,
yeah.
And then move it to the other side and swirl it around and, hold it there for 10 seconds and then break off the little stick and drop it into the solution, into the little test tube, put the lid back on, put it in there, put it in this bag. And literally they've touched nothing. It's all me. But, I can at least confidently say that, because I had one last Monday, and then I had one last Friday because they moved the appointment because of the weather that we had.
Uh-huh.
And
that's
so,
right. I remember.
And so I've had whatchamacallit, 2 COVID tests and 2 negative COVIDs come back to me, and yay.
I kind of wish we all had it already and we're over it.
Yeah. People are most certainly getting to their wits' end about all of this. I mean, this one guy, you're not allowed to go into the actual, to check in and stuff. You can't go into the actual office. You have to stand out in the hallway, call a number, tell them you're there, and then there's chairs positioned basically down the hallway.
Oh.
Well, it's down the hallway 6 feet apart where you have to sit.
You get to go down there and wait.
Yeah. So then this one guy was there for a procedure, and, with all the prep time and everything else that, you have to do to this and stuff. He was there, and I had gotten up from my chair to go and help this older lady came up, and she's like, I was like, oh, you need to call in. She goes, oh, they said don't bring any valuables. So I left my phone in the car, and I can't call them up. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me go ahead and call. And so I'm standing there with her and stuff. And this guy was, comes back, and I was like, oh, sir, I was sitting there, I'm not sure you want to sit there. And so he comes up to the chair, literally inches from my leg, and sits down there and says, do you mind moving?
What?
Like, sir, I'm on the phone trying to help this lady out. He goes, well, I just need my space. So
Man.
what? So his procedure was a colonoscopy, and so all of like the thing, and I don't want to get into this, and gross people out or anything like that, but it is for those people who've gone through this and heard, and know what I'm referring to. He had to go through all the pre-prep stuff,
Oh.
and he's in like the little curtained off area right next to me, both before and after. And when we're both sitting there like waiting, they come in, they tell me, everything's normal, blah blah blah, all this other stuff. We had to do this and this, and then kind of like said, okay, you're good. And then they're like, well, sir, you apparently didn't follow the procedure requirements, and we couldn't do a good test on you, or do a good procedure on you.
Uh-oh.
And so
Start over?
he has to start over, and I'm like, serves you right.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, you, I honestly sad, but I was so happy that the way that this guy treated me and this poor old lady out in the hallway, it literally was karma coming back to bite him in
Yeah.
the ass.
Nice.
It's just like, you're
Brutal.
like, enjoy that again.
Yeah. Wow. Dude.
Because I'm assuming you haven't had one yet
No.
because of your age, and it will
Young.
it will be coming. It will be coming up soon, and when you go through the process, you will understand exactly just the
Fantastic.
yeah. And again, don't want to get graphic or anything, but it's a rather shitty adventure.